everybody, and welcome to another episode of Insufficient Friends. I'm Kevin. She's Nikki.
Hi.
And, Nick, it's Friday.
It's Friday.
It's been a long week.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know why,
Yeah.
but it's been a long week.
You said that last week, and I was like, yeah. But this, I felt it this week.
Okay. Well, that's good to know that I'm not alone.
Yeah.
It's going to get longer because I have to work the entire weekend as well. And
Oh,
then
really?
all next week. So it's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
But it's not gonna be fun.
Yeah.
So yeah. But welcome. Hello, everybody. If you're new here, we don't do this very often. I don't ever do this. But if you're new here, this is a podcast about nothing.
Yes.
This week's true crime, and we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, we're gonna play detective. It's gonna be exciting.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. But before we get to that, I do have one shout out. Well, two shout. It's one and two and one, whatever. Two shout outs, one shout out, whatever. But it's Nikki's birthday. It was Nikki's birthday yesterday. Yesterday. And your husband's birthday is tomorrow. So Casey, his birthday is tomorrow. So happy birthday.
Thanks. We can celebrate in the middle.
Celebrate in the middle.
Yep.
There you go. Do you guys do anything like... You guys always celebrate in the middle. Do you do anything special? Are you doing anything fun? Or
yes and no. It just depends on the year.
Okay.
But yesterday, and it's funny how birthdays evolve as you get older. Like,
I don't do anything.
Remembering like birthdays as a kid were super exciting. Teenager, you usually did something fun. And then like your 21st birthday and your early 20s. And now, like being 27, yesterday, Casey asked what I wanted to do for my birthday, knowing that we usually do something together, but asked if I wanted to do anything on my own. And I wanted to go to Starbucks and get my free birthday drink.
Okay.
I wanted to go to Texas Roadhouse because I love their rolls.
Yeah, they got good rolls.
And in the middle of those two things, we walked around Hobby Lobby because here in town, it's right next to the Texas Roadhouse. And he asked if I wanted anything as a present, and I picked out dog toys. So a very adult birthday compared to just everything else.
I went to Hobby Lobby around Christmas when my mom was up here to visit. It's the first time I've been in a Hobby Lobby in probably
It's nothing special.
Like the first time I've walked around a Hobby Lobby in a while. And I didn't realize they sold quite as many things as they do.
They do have a lot of things. Like Casey gets a lot of models and figurines and stuff he puts together from there. And usually I will get either dog stuff or some random thing for the home that I don't really need. It's kind of like Marshalls. You just find things.
Dog stuff is not something that I expect to be at Hobby Lobby.
No, and to be fair, it's a small aisle.
Okay.
But they do have a couple toys, a couple things. They have... different things where you can make your own treats, like different stuff than like PetSmart would have. But it is like a small aisle.
But I saw like a small toy aisle when we were there, and like I and then you got the big fabric section and the frames and stuff like, and that's the things that I expect to see there, not kids' toys. There was a whole section of like T-shirts and stuff, which I guess goes with like the making your own. And that kind of makes sense. But it was still a little weird to see just a big like massive wall of T-shirts. At Hobby Lobby. Yeah. Like it's just not
but
something
it is,
I was
like that's
expecting.
a hobby too, like making
That's true.
clothes.
Well, that's what me and my mom were there for. Is she was buying things to make shirts for like my brother and stuff. So that's
but it was fun. So we did that, and then tomorrow we're gonna go well, not real golfing, but to the off-brand Top Golf.
Oh yeah.
And then we're gonna go to Sake after and get sushi and stuff. So we had like our Midwestern birthday and then like our nice birthday.
Okay.
That's what I consider the two.
I'm not a sushi person. I can eat it. I can eat it.
Okay, so
if I have to.
Here's the tip. There's rolls for every type of thing you could possibly imagine. Casey likes the deep fried chicken rolls, so it's not like real sushi. But I like Philadelphia rolls and things like that, but
I don't know if it's the texture of the way that it's all put together.
Yeah,
because I've tried several different ones.
Yeah,
I've tried the like sashimi.
Didn't you and Stevie
she brought one for me to like I think it was a California roll for me to try, which I've tried that.
Yeah.
I've tried like what's it called? The fried shrimp. Like I've tried those ones. I've tried cooked fish in it. I've tried sashimi, so the raw fish in it. Like I've tried several different ones,
You still didn't like it?
just none of them really appeal to me that much. And it's just I think it's the texture.
I could see
and
that,
the way
especially
that
if you
it's,
get
like,
fish and
all mixed together. I don't care for it.
Yeah. Casey likes the ones that are like rice, fried chicken, spicy sauce, and they're deep fried.
I mean, I get that. That makes sense.
He'll try the other ones, kind of like you. Like he'll try anything.
Yeah, if you give it to me, I'll try it. But
he just doesn't like it.
I'm not gonna go out and choose that myself.
Yeah. Luckily, Sake, where we're going, has other things like the pork rolls and different appetizers, and they have a ton of stuff. It's not just sushi. That's what I get there. But.
Makes it
so that's why we're going there specifically, is because they have a lot of stuff.
Okay, well that makes it easier.
But it'll be fun.
So this week we decided to do a true crime episode.
Yeah,
we did one case apiece, and we're just gonna go over the case. We're gonna be detectives. So this is the first ever case or the first two cases for, I'm gonna call it IFPI, Insufficient Friends Private Investigators. So and I have a prop. Hold on.
Oh gosh.
Hold on.
TBD. I have no idea what this is. Okay, I almost brought a fedora.
We got a prop. I got to put the headset on. Hold on. Is this gonna work?
Will it fit?
Ho. Kind of. There we go. Can I hear? Yeah, that works. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have to wear this to hear you.
You know what's funny is I literally almost I have a tan fedora, and nice. I almost brought it.
And yes, if you're wondering, this is actually my hat. I didn't buy it for this. I've had it for a long time, and it is like a real wool fedora. So anyway,
I have one question for you before we start. Yeah. Do you have, because I love detective shows and things like that. Do you have a favorite detective or a couple favorite detectives, whether like books, TV? Do you watch any true crime or detective shows? Or
I don't watch any true crime. Years ago, this is being weird. I don't know what's going on. Hold on. Years ago,
the vibes are immaculate, though.
I used to watch. I used to watch NCIS.
Yeah. Okay.
Which I liked.
Yeah.
The only reason I stopped watching it is because a lot of the people that I like, the characters started to go away, and it started to get repetitive.
Yeah.
There's only so many ways you can, like, there are a lot of ways you can kill somebody.
Yeah.
But there's only so many ways you can kill somebody and still make it interesting for an hour episode every week. I did like that. That's
because I love
I never
detective
really
shows.
Got into I never was really big into detective shows. I also read a lot.
I read, like, Nancy Drew was like the only thing I read growing up. I read other things, of course, but I had like every single book. I checked out every single book from the library. Like, I asked if there were any more. Like, I asked the librarian if there were any more Nancy Drew books, and she said, "No, you've read them all." And then I grew up watching Monk. I loved watching Monk. Which he's the OCD.
detective. I'm not a big fan of him. Like, I don't like his comedy.
Like Tony Shalhoub.
Yeah, Shalhoub or whatever it is. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of his comedy because I'm not super big into.
I don't know anything else he does.
Awkward comedy is what he does most of the time.
Okay, that makes sense. I don't know him in anything but Monk, so.
I'm not a huge fan of that, and I don't know. Yeah, I just wasn't a big fan of it. So
I also love Olivia Benson.
Okay,
I don't Law and Order SVU.
Okay,
yeah, she's the captain of the squad now.
Yeah, I know. Now that you say Law and Order SVU, she's the main girl. Yeah, okay.
And if anyone in the comments can answer this, Stevie, if you're listening, what famous celebrity has a cat named Olivia Benson? Someone comment and tell us.
What famous celebrity?
I'll shout you out next episode if you get it right. Don't guess.
Well,
Leave it to them.
I don't know. I don't even know where to guess.
You're a horrible detective.
I didn't. All I got is the hat. That's all it is. There's nothing else to it. It's just the hat.
It's just the vibes.
It's just the vibes. The vibes are all I've got. This doesn't actually do anything.
So did you solve your case? What's your case?
Okay, so my case is actually from where I'm from, which is around Springfield, Missouri. Mm-hmm. There is a case. Me and my dad have talked about this in the past. I don't think I've ever talked about it with my mom. But in 1992, they're become known as the Springfield Three. It's a woman, her daughter, and one of her daughter's friends that all of a sudden just disappeared.
I don't think I've ever heard of this.
It's Cheryl Levitt was the mom, Susie Streeter is her daughter, and Stacy McCall is the other one. The girls were 18 and 19, and the mom was 47. They had just graduated high school. Oh. The night before, they had graduated high school, they went to the parties.
Yeah.
They went home, and then the next morning they were just gone. Friends.
That's horrible timing.
Stacy's mom tried to call. Mm-hmm. Friends tried to show up to find out what they were doing, what had happened. Mm-hmm. They just and they weren't there. Mm-hmm. All their cars were there. Their purses were all in the house. Their clothes were neatly arranged. The house there's no sign of a struggle anywhere.
Weird.
They just disappeared. There was no money missing. Mm-hmm. There was nothing was missing. They just are gone.
I feel like we're by a campfire and you're telling a scary story because it actually scares me knowing that this happened.
Yeah. So, which is weird that they just kind of disappeared, just nothing. So I was watching a thing on this earlier today, True Crime Daily did a piece on it several years ago, and there's been other places that did a piece, but that did pieces on it. But so the friends who had all come over to find them, they didn't call 911 because they're like, oh well, they're just gonna be back, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Because everything's still here. Their cars are here. Their stuff's here. They just went out. They're just gonna come back.
Walk.
It's not a big deal. While they were there, they got a weird phone call that was left on the voicemail that they said was lewd and sexual, and they just thought was a prank, so they deleted it. And police think that was something that was probably had to do with this.
Yeah.
So that's gone. So the phone call is gone.
And there was no way
ever, because it's an answering machine in the 1990s. It's there's no way of recovering this.
Yeah, it's not like it backs up.
And they clean the house, not thinking about it being a crime scene.
Why would you clean random?
Because they're all friends.
Not random, but yeah, I wouldn't clean my friend's house.
I don't know.
The only time I've ever cleaned a friend's house is
being nervous and not knowing who your friends are.
Yeah, I guess so, if you're trying to keep busy.
Yeah. Just trying to do something and be oh, well, we'll just help out. We'll just clean up a little bit.
Huh.
And so the police are yeah, there's no DNA. There was nothing, nothing we could check.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So this case just kind of, a couple weeks later, a lady calls and says that she saw a girl that she saw a girl driving a van that looked like one of the girls.
Driving a van
somewhere around the area.
The girl was driving, she wasn't in the back.
No, she was driving the van, but the person could reportedly hear a man yelling at her from the back seat, but couldn't see him. So that tip kind of falls along the wayside, never goes anywhere. They never find anything, nothing.
Yeah.
Well, they investigate one of the girl's boyfriends because he had been in trouble for he had recently gotten in trouble for grave robbing. Which is weird.
That's not what I expected.
Her ex-boyfriend had recently gotten in trouble for grave robbing, and she was supposed to testify against him at trial, which was coming up. So he's one of the suspects.
Okay.
And his friends.
Suspect number one.
They were in the area when it happened, supposedly. Okay.
Huh.
But the police can't do anything because there's no DNA evidence. There's no bodies. There's nothing.
Yeah.
To this day, they have no idea where they are. There's, as of last year, there had been 5,000 public tips. They have no idea. Like,
Oh my god.
they get tips all the time. They have a whole room dedicated to this case, and they just don't know where they are. The other suspect that later came up in the late 90s is a guy that was arrested for kidnapping and robbing.
Okay.
And a suspected murderer. He was in, I don't know if he's still in jail in Texas or not, but in Texas, yeah, because he originally got in trouble in Florida.
Okay.
But he worked with one of the girls' dads at a car dealership in Springfield.
And that's
right
why
around when they went
Okay.
disappeared, and then he was later arrested in Texas for a kidnapping and robbery and stuff like that, and was serving prison time. And he's also suspected of murder. He did an interview with a journalist after he was arrested.
Okay.
And said that he knew the girls were dead, but you'd never find the bodies.
Okay, so not only like was he crossing state lines all over the place, so that automatically makes the investigation harder, especially in the 90s.
Yeah. But he knew the girls were dead.
Yeah, and then you add that to it.
Yeah. So originally he claimed he was at church the night that they disappeared. Okay. And his girlfriend at the time backed him up on that story. And then when he was arrested in Texas, she went back on it and said that he weren't actually at church. So now he's still a suspect. He's still a suspect.
And he's still alive.
I'm guessing
in prison?
so. I'm guessing so. I don't know if
because it's only been 30 years. So if he was middle-aged, he could still be alive.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. It automatically
makes it weird, but there's no
been to
evidence.
Multiple states and yeah.
He hasn't said he hasn't said enough to incriminate himself. Like he said enough to make himself a suspect, but he hasn't said enough to actually bring charges without.
Well, and if he's done this before, even if the friends hadn't cleaned, he might have, gotten rid of any evidence to begin with if he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, exactly. So there was also a tip. And this is another weird one. There was a tip in the I think it was in the 2000s. Okay, so 10 or 15 years after this happened.
Okay.
Where a private investigator, just somebody just looking into the case, decided that she got a tip that the bodies were buried under a parking garage that a hospital built.
Oh.
Because a year after they went missing, one of the main hospitals built a new parking garage. And she got a tip that they were buried under that garage. And she hired a person to use ground penetrating radar to go into the garage. And he supposedly found 3 different objects in a somewhat small area that he said looks like what a grave would look like. But police have said that there's no evidence that it's true. There's nothing that they can do. You can't force.
There's lots of things in the ground that could look like that. Yeah.
And you can't force anybody. You can't force the hospital to spend millions of dollars to tear up a parking garage.
He said it looks like graves, not like bodies.
It looks like what he would see if he goes to a grave site and sees this underground. This is what he would see. You got to remember he's looking through concrete with a computer, so it's only going to be so
you can't
so detailed.
Probably see the outline of the skeleton. And...
So they obviously they also, one of the other things about it is that police somehow and this is somehow believe that this tip came in as a vision from a psychic. So that's another thing. That's
that's what led to it.
That's what led to it originally.
Yeah.
So
we've talked about psychics.
We've talked about psychics and stuff before.
Everyone has different beliefs, and everyone's beliefs are valid. But yeah, in terms of investigating crime, when you have to have solid evidence that you can take to a court of law, I can see how it's not fruit of the poisonous tree. Like it wasn't, found illegally or anything, but it brings everything else after that into question, which is not good when you're trying to try a case.
And also, even if it was okay, so even if they were whatever, you can't, with that little evidence, you can't force somebody to dig up a parking garage.
Yeah,
spend millions of dollars to
probably
dig
a
up a parking
private
garage.
company. Yeah.
It's a private hospital, and the police have they said that there's no logical reasoning behind the idea. Nothing.
Yeah.
And they're also, one of the other things that they said was it happened a year. So either they hid the bodies for a year and then buried them there when the garage was being built, or they buried them there
Just randomly.
Yeah.
And it happened to be that.
But if they did, one of the officers that I was on this investigation said, we would think that the excavation for the garage would have turned up these bodies.
True,
because you're not going to be able to. You're not going to dig down 30 feet to get down and get a body under there. So I don't know how much you dig to build a garage. So
someone either in the construction crew or something would have
noticed.
Had to would have had to notice, and if
they were involved.
Noticed, they were involved. Yeah, exactly. Which is so highly unlikely.
Yeah. So yeah, that's and the case
and that's
is
where
just,
the case stands today.
It's
what
just
was the? I mean, because when did you say they disappeared again?
1992.
1992. So I wasn't born yet.
Yeah,
so
I was 3, not quite 3.
Yeah. So you don't remember the initial reaction, but growing up, was there paranoia? Like, what was the community's?
So I don't remember anything personally.
Okay.
Like I said, my dad talked about it. We lived, from what I understand, because this was in Battlefield. Let me look here, because I didn't think to look this up.
Because it's different when it's a disappearance case and you don't know what happened. I feel like the thing that shakes communities more is like really gruesome.
The unknown. Yeah, well,
things.
That too. Yeah. Let's see, where are the things?
At least with disappearances and stuff, I feel like people can rationalize different things. But if it's like a murder and something really gruesome, like the case I'm going to talk about, it's like it happened. It could happen again because the person's still out there. Versus this one, you don't really know either way.
Yeah.
It could be the guy that's still alive and in prison, but.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of in the middle of town, so I thought it was a different location, but
yeah, but still the same town, so still the same community, and that's wild.
Yeah, it is. It's a weird case, and the fact that it's just, there's so many things that happened, like the erasing of the message, and the fact that there's really no struggle, and that all their stuff was left, and there wasn't any.
The girls themselves and the mom, was anything weird in their backgrounds, or they're just normal?
So
normal
the
people,
only
graduating high school, and the mom's just a normal mom.
I mean, everything I've seen is that they're just kind of normal. I mean, the one girl was dating the guy
the
ex-boyfriend that was the grave robber, but that's
the only normal thing.
One of the reports was that she dumped him after. I mean, she was obviously going to testify against him in court, so she didn't find that being okay.
Not grounds for a healthy relationship.
Not really probably the best relationship. But yeah, it's just kind of sitting there, just a cold case.
Yeah.
Which it's kind of surprising sometimes that I mean, you think about how some of these cases go. Like in the 90s, you didn't have all the technology that you have now.
Yeah.
You didn't have a phone on you, and I mean, you didn't have a bunch of stuff.
I mean, you don't
like
even
that,
have a voice recorder that backs up the messages.
Yeah.
Or not voice recorder, answering machine.
An answering machine, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a lot different now, which is why every once in a while, I mean, even just here in Columbia, we had a couple years ago, we've had a couple cold cases that have been.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had a cold case here in Columbia that was a guy was arrested in North Carolina. I think it was North Carolina a couple years ago for a case from the 80s. And there was a murder case from the 80s or 70s or 80s that was also a guy was arrested within the last couple years just outside Jeff City. So, yeah, with the new technology and like being able to, because a lot of times they take DNA evidence from back then.
Yeah, they just couldn't
test it against anything. And now that they have like the 23andMe and stuff like that and the familial things, they can kind of test it against that kind of stuff, and it comes back.
Yeah, and not just that. I mean, just the technology is so advanced that you can make better matches, and yeah.
So, but yeah, that's basically where the case stands today. From what I can tell, it's just it's open. They continue to police continue to get tips every once in a while.
Yeah. What do you think happened? Like, if, and of course, this is just conjecture, just for fun. What do you think is the most plausible theory? I guess there's really only two suspects that we know of, it sounds like. Yeah. So between the two, is there one that sticks out more to you?
Personally, I don't know. Because my question, the only thing that makes me not know is the guy that's in jail in Texas. Is if he knew the girl, how well he knew her. Because it sounds with the house not being torn apart in a struggle or anything else.
It lends to the fact that they
knew who it was.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't know about him.
Yeah.
The boyfriend makes me think, but you would think that she would fight him if she wasn't dating him anymore either. So I don't know. It's a weird. It's just in general. It's just weird.
Yeah. Just like any disappearance case.
Yeah.
This one, especially with it not having a struggle.
Yeah.
And
it's also, it's not just, and I heard the prosecutor and the police talked about this when they were talking about it. It's one person disappearing is like, okay, that happens. Two people disappearing is an unusual thing. 3 people disappearing all at the same time from the same place together is very unusual.
Well, and like, how does, one man get 3 girls? Yeah. I could understand, like, okay, a mom and daughter, maybe you threaten the daughter's life, and so they both come or whatever. But 3 is that's a lot of.
They're also not young. They're not like little kids. These are 18 and 19-year-olds. Like they're.
I mean, I guess if he was armed, like if someone walked in and there was 5 people in a room, but they were armed, yeah, I'm sure all 5 people would follow.
Probably.
But
I don't know. You would think that a struggle would be put up of some sort.
Yeah.
But it's just overall, it's just an odd thing.
Maybe he had ice cream.
Maybe he was in an ice cream truck?
Yeah. And they all got in. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. Weird.
Yeah. Anyway, what was your case about?
Yeah, and so mine's a little more gruesome, so I will put a trigger warning out there. But it's a very well-known case. It's synonymous with true crime, basically, at this point. The Black Dahlia murder.
Okay.
And so
I don't think I've ever heard this before. So
maybe
when you explain it.
If you're a person who has listened to even like one true crime episode, you're gonna know at least what it is.
Yeah, I'm not one.
And so most people know about this, but still putting that out there that it is a little gruesome because it's a murder, not a disappearance. So here's the facts. On the morning of January 15th, 1947, so earlier than the case we just talked through, a mother taking her child for a walk in a Los Angeles neighborhood stumbled upon a gruesome sight, the body of a young woman sliced clean in half at the waist. The body was just a few feet from the sidewalk and posed in a way that the mother reportedly thought initially it was a mannequin on the side of the road, or on the side of the sidewalk.
Okay.
Despite the extensive mutilation and cuts on the body, because her face was cut into like a smile, like everything was mutilated, basically. That's why I gave a trigger warning, because it was like crazy. But despite all that, there was not one drop of blood at the scene, which indicates that she was probably killed somewhere else and then staged there. Yeah. So the investigation was led by LAPD, but they brought the FBI in to help. Makes sense. So the FBI actually really quickly identified the body. They said in the report, it says that the body was identified in 56 minutes, which in 1947 was crazy.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah, but I guess so it was a 22-year-old woman named Elizabeth Short. And she was already in the FBI database because she had been arrested before. And so...
okay, so they could test for things.
Yeah, so they already had her fingerprints. That's why it was so quick.
Got it. Makes sense. That makes more sense.
Yeah. So, yep, young woman, 22-year-old Hollywood hopeful named Elizabeth Short. Later dubbed the Black Dahlia by, not anyone related to her, just by the public, because she was a lot of the time seen in like sheer black clothes. And there was another famous movie out at the time called Blue Dahlia, where, spoiler alert for 1947 movie, but one of the main women in it gets murdered, and it was just eerily similar to this case, kind of.
Okay.
Not exactly the same, but it was close enough to where people named her Black Dahlia. Like, that was the nickname for the case. And so that's how that came about. So she had been arrested before for underage drinking, but her fingerprints were also, I think, in the FBI database because she was also a camp cook for the Army or something at a camp for the Army. Okay. I don't know, something like that. So that is kind of the basic facts of the case. And so there's a lot more that went into it, but I wanted to spend more time on the suspects because the list of suspects is massive. And I can't even touch on them all because there was so much misinformation about this case. And I'll talk a little bit about police corruption later too. But there was so much misinformation all around about this case that the list of suspects, it included the randomest people. Like, one person accused Bugsy Siegel, the mobster. Yeah. Just like people just threw out.
So they're not real suspects. They're just like people throwing out names. Back then was probably more of a thing than it is now, where it's.
So I tried to pick out ones that I actually thought were the most plausible. And even though most of these, the police said, nope, that's baseless in the end, I chose just a couple to talk about that kind of make sense.
Okay.
So the LAPD had the FBI run a lot of the interviews with the suspects too. So the FBI conducted a lot of interviews, not just in LA, but across the nation because so many accusations were being thrown out all over. So one of the early suspicions was that the murderer may have come from, there was a medical school nearby, and because of the way it was cut and the body was cut and mutilated and everything, they served a warrant there, but nothing ever came of it. No one there really fit any profile of anyone who would do that or had the means to do it or had the privacy to kill someone and then stage the body. So that didn't really go anywhere.
Okay.
But the second suspect that I found was Norman Chandler. So there was a book written in 2005, and this is another thing. Things are still, like, there are still accusations being thrown out. So, like, this book from 2005 names this guy as a suspect.
Everybody that would have been a suspect has to be dead at this point, right? Like, everybody's dead.
To my understanding, yeah, because it was 1947.
The police, the investigators, because you would have had to have been born, or you're in your 90s.
Yeah, like on.
And you would have been in your, and that would have put you in your 20s when this happened.
Yeah. And so that's why I chose this case, because it's so wild. Like, people are still making accusations. And that's why I personally believe this case will never be solved, because there was so much misinformation, corruption throughout, like up until today. Anyways, so this 2005 book by Donald Wolfe, The Black Dahlia Files, names Norman Chandler, who at the time from 1945 to 1960 was publisher of the Los Angeles Times, so the newspaper.
Okay.
Named him as a suspect. It was a super complicated scenario, basically involving multiple people, but it somewhat makes sense because the author of the book claims that Norman Chandler, the LA Times publisher, impregnated Elizabeth Short while she was working as a call girl, which is, for the most part, people say this is not probably true. The reason I added it is because not a lot is known for sure about Elizabeth Short, but what is known is towards the end of her life, she was basically homeless, probably a call girl. Like, there's a lot of things that about her life that would align with that being a plausible story.
Isn't it pretty easy to test and see if she was pregnant?
Well, her body was cut in half, and she was not pregnant, according to the coroner.
Okay.
So there's a couple suspects
this
in
is
this
the
list
40s,
that
so
said she had a
that's-
miscarriage, and
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah. But I included that one because it is somewhat plausible because of her lifestyle,
Okay.
basically. So that was that one. But that was a more recent accusation. So this third suspect, he was accused back then. He was one of the first suspects. So Robert Red was his nickname, Manley, was the last person seen with Elizabeth before her disappearance. He was the top suspect in the first few days,
Okay.
like after they discovered the body. But after 2 polygraph tests, which if you practice, people can beat those.
Yeah. That's why they're not admissible in court. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't
But
actually.
he also had a pretty good alibi, so he was set free. But he had identified her handbag and one of her shoes after they were discovered in a trash can a couple days later in the investigation. But he could have just seen her wearing them because he had seen her before her disappearance. So everything was just iffy with him.
Okay.
But the weird thing about him is he was discharged from the Army for a mental disability. So
Okay.
and committed to an asylum later in his life, more towards the 60s. So everything with him was just like it could be, but
It's just kind of
yeah,
off, basically.
probably not. He probably was just around her.
Yeah.
Had some mental issues, but was he the killer?
Which, I mean,
Not likely.
if he had mental issues and was discharged from the Army, he may have been homeless too. So he could have been in those.
Exactly.
Same
So he could have been an
situa- He could have been
acquaintance.
around, and an acquaintance of hers too.
Which
so
would
that
make
makes
sense why he could identify her things. And
Yeah.
so, okay, so the next suspect here, George Knowlton. Not much is known about him except that he lived in LA at the time because he was not one of the original suspects, to my understanding.
Okay.
He had died in an automobile accident in 1962. In the 90s, it still blows my mind that like 90s, 2005, all these years later, things are still coming out. So in the 90s, this guy's daughter claimed that she had witnessed him murdering Elizabeth Short. But her claim was based on recovered memories that surfaced during a therapy session for depression. So
Really, people.
whether or not she was like
Really, people.
hypnotized and then these came about, like, it's super unreliable. I hate, talking bad about women who like are going through therapy because it was very real problems.
Okay.
But recovered memories are not reliable.
Therapy is good.
It's meant to heal yourself, not
it helps.
solve crimes.
But it's not meant to solve crimes, one.
Yeah.
And two, like, your recovered memories your memories can already be corrupted very easily.
Yeah.
And when usually, from what I understand, if you're in one of those sessions like that, you're kind of in a very vulnerable state to where you could easily have
be
something
manipulated
and have something implanted into your head.
And who knows what happens. But based on that therapy session or multiple therapy sessions, she published a book, and the book is called Daddy Was the Black Dahlia Killer.
That just sounds like, your 15 minutes of fame is what it sounds like.
And she published this with a crime writer, Michael Newton. And this was published in 1985. So there's a lot of speculation because she published it with a crime writer.
So?
Like, he wanted publicity, maybe.
Yeah,
like,
okay.
So.
Yeah, okay. Whatever.
So basically, she alleged that with these recovered memories, she remembers Elizabeth Short was staying with them because she was having an affair with the father, and then got pregnant, suffered a miscarriage, and then her father allegedly murdered Short in their garage, bisected her in the sink, and then forced the daughter to accompany him when he disposed of the body. So supposedly she remembered all this.
So this is basically the same story as the publisher.
Very similar.
Is what it sounds like. Almost the same story.
And a lot of these are similar.
And it also,
I mean, there were.
Yeah.
I read something like there were like 200 people that confessed to this murder. It was just.
I don't get that.
It's absolutely because it's like one of the most highly publicized cases of all time, and so everyone wants to.
Everyone wants to be
However they can do it. It's Hollywood. Hollywood is so messed up.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was the fourth suspect.
Okay.
I have a couple more.
Okay.
Just a couple.
Okay.
And the last couple are actually who I think are the most persuasive. So, next one is Mark Hansen. Mark Hansen was a Hollywood nightclub owner. Elizabeth Short had lived at his house for a while, either as a boarder or a guest, because she was friends with Mark Hansen's girlfriend. And they even shared a room at one point. And so Elizabeth Short called Hansen from San Diego on January 8th, so right a couple days before her body was found.
Okay.
Making him what the police believed to be one of the last people who Elizabeth talked to. And so when the police questioned him on what that conversation was about, he gave conflicting stories, wouldn't answer, was just being sketchy. And then later the DA's files also indicated that Hansen had tried to seduce Elizabeth Short, but was rebuffed by her.
Okay.
And so I included that line because, like, women have been killed for less.
Yeah.
So it would make sense that if it really was something as simple as that, I could see that, too, as being plausible. So
it was also the 40s.
Yeah.
In Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
The next suspect is Leslie. Yeah. Leslie Dillon. So Leslie Dillon.
First female suspect here.
No, man.
Oh, this is a guy? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, never mind.
Sorry. I feel like Leslie was a popular man's name.
That's true.
Around that time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the LAPD had thought they got a break in the case because this guy called to give a tip, and he called himself Jack Sand, which is the weirdest fake name ever.
Okay.
And he made claims about the case and said that another man named Jeff Connors had killed Short because she threatened to reveal an affair. And so when it came out that his real name was Leslie Dillon and he was a known grifter, which grifter is like a con man, right? I think.
Yeah.
Because it's different than drifter.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just made him really suspect. But the kicker is he is said to have worked for Mark Hansen in the past. So the nightclub owner that I just talked about.
Okay.
Yeah. So remember that in a second.
Okay.
Because that's going to play into my theory.
Okay.
Based on nothing but my own thoughts as to what happened. So get your detective hat on.
The hat here.
Make sure it's on. So that's Leslie Dillon. Jeff Connors, who is the guy that Leslie Dillon named when he called it, like this case is so all over the place. Jeff Connors is the guy that Leslie Dillon named when he called in and said, I know who did it. Okay. So Jeff Connors was a supposed up-and-coming actor who met Elizabeth in a bar during the last week she was alive.
Okay.
He gave super conflicting statements to the police about both his alibi and he said his ex-wife's name wrong several times. And so he originally said that his ex-wife's name was Grace Evans. And this is in a newspaper. I found an old Australian newspaper that had these excerpts and all these stories. Like, it's just wild how famous this case was.
Okay.
So he originally said his ex-wife's name was Grace Evans, but her real name is Grace Allen. And she told police, I've never gone by that name. I have no idea why he said that. But still backed him up and said his alibi was true. And she said he was working at Columbia Studios that night because he was supposedly an actor. And he was out of the house during that time. But the payroll records at Columbia Studios don't show him as an actor. They do show an Arthur Lane, who was a laborer, which apparently is Jeff Connor's real name.
Okay.
I literally don't understand the twists and turns this case takes. But
yeah.
So not only did he not know his ex-wife's name, he had another name. This is just all over the place.
The ex-wife's name, though, I could see like you just being nervous, being interviewed by the police and
But
fumbling.
you would think like, okay, maybe you said her maiden name or something.
You would think, but
she was like, I've never heard that name before.
Yeah, I don't know. That's weird. Anyway,
so that's Jeff Connors.
They're also going by all going by different names. So
yeah. Okay, so we're almost at the end of the suspects. There's two more main suspects. Okay. So this next guy was another one that came out in 2003, like years later. So Dr. George Hill Hodel Jr., and this is probably the most well-known suspect because his son has published so much about him, done TV shows, done so many things, and still runs a website about how his dad is the Black Dahlia killer. So nowadays, this guy is the most well-known. Do I think it fits? No, and here's why. Because the son, I think, is a little cuckoo. But so he published a book about how so Steve Hodel is the son, published a book about his dad, George Hodel, about how he was the murderer. But also claims that he was responsible for many other unsolved killings, and also claims that he was the Avenger and the Zodiac Killer. And there's a lot that goes against his theories.
He's just clumping a bunch of serial killers into one is what he's doing.
And so there's a lot of things that would make sense about this, and I can see, like, yes, the facts line up for this, but then there's a lot that also don't line up. And so this guy published this book. The head deputy DA in 2003 said that he agreed with this son and took all of his claims as fact. And then an LAPD officer that was in charge of the Black Dahlia case in 2003, Brian Carr, went on a televised interview and was like, I have no idea why they're saying these things are true. I don't understand why the head DA is saying, yes, the son's story is true. No idea. And then he said, I don't have the time either to prove or disprove this investigation because I have
other real things to do. Yeah.
So that's weird. But the thing that gets me is George Hodel was under surveillance by the FBI at this time.
When she died.
Yeah, because he was initially a suspect, not for very long though.
What was he under surveillance for?
Because it was pretty plausible at the time because the facts lined up pretty well that he could be the Black Dahlia killer.
Okay, so he was under surveillance after she died.
Yes, yes, back then.
Got it.
The claims later from his son that he's also like the Avenger and the Zodiac killer and also did all these other things, that's what's a little bonkers and then lends to more discredibility to the other story.
Yeah.
But originally it did line up pretty well. And so under FBI surveillance on a microphone, because I think they bugged his house, he said, this is a quote, supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia. They couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary anymore because she's dead. They thought there was something fishy about that. Anyway, now they might have figured it out, killed her. Maybe I did kill my secretary. That's a quote from a microphone from FBI surveillance. So people don't know, like, was this guy just all over the place? And his son is all over the place, and it's just a family that wants attention?
Maybe. But the attention, I mean, the family that wants attention makes sense for the son a little bit. But if he was on a microphone, if it was bugged and he was on a microphone, then he's not going to know that you wouldn't think that he would know somebody was listening to that. Yeah. So you would think he would just say that.
Yeah. So,
but
I don't know. He was suspected for also killing his secretary. And so there, like I said, there were a lot of things that did line up to where he would be one of the most accurate suspects, I guess, or whatever you would call it. But now that the son has come out and said all these things about him being the Zodiac killer,
it's kind of thrown everything else into question. Yeah,
like everything with this case, it's like, what the heck is going on?
Okay.
Okay, last suspect. I know you're tired. Last one.
Sorry. I'm not trying. I'm not meaning to yawn at your. I'm not. I'm really. It is interesting.
Yeah.
I'm just been up for a long time.
And this is like I only took 9 out of here. There were literally like.
Yeah, you said there was like hundreds. Yeah, which is just crazy.
So many people confessed.
It's just crazy.
So the last one that was one of the most plausible, at least as I was reading through the case files and everything, was Dr. Patrick O'Reilly. So he was a medical doctor. He knew Elizabeth Short through the nightclub owner, Mark Hansen.
Again, okay.
Remember I said,
Yep,
Mark Hansen? According to the files, at the time of the murder, he was a good friend and frequented the nightclub a lot. Also states that he attended lots of adult parties with Hansen.
Okay.
Had a history of violent crime. He had been convicted of assault with a deadly weapon before for taking his secretary to a motel and sadistically beating her.
Great guy. Stand-up guy.
Yeah, just awesome.
Just
human
wonderful.
being.
Mm-hmm.
Great doctor.
Yep.
Love to have him as my doctor.
Sarcasm.
I'd love to have him do my surgeries, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the DA files also indicate that his right pectoral shoulder. I don't know.
Pectoral's like your chest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Had been surgically removed, which the investigators found similar to the mutilation of Short's body. I guess it showed that like maybe the guy was left-handed or stronger with his other side or something like that. So,
and if he was a doctor, he would obviously, and a surgeon, he would obviously have the know-how of dissecting a body like that.
So that was kind of the last really strong suspect in my case. So I'll go into my theory in just a second, but really quickly, the only big development I could find that was actually a development and not just public speculation and misinformation, basically, there was a suspicious manila envelope addressed to the Los Angeles Examiner that was discovered, and it was made using like the cutout words, like as if it was like a movie. And it had a note that said, "Here is Dahlia's belongings," and inside the note was Elizabeth Short's birth certificate, business cards, photographs, other names written on a piece of paper, and her address book. And all of the contents of the envelope had been cleaned with gasoline, and her body was also cleaned with gasoline.
That's weird.
So the police were pretty convinced that this envelope had come from the killer, and they gave it to the FBI to run any fingerprints, but the FBI couldn't find any matches. There were fingerprints still on it. Okay. But they couldn't find any matches. And still can't. And so what's really cool is the FBI has a vault, like a record database online. And so I might post this on our Instagram because it's pretty cool. Like I found the letter amongst the 200 documents in this vault about this case. Okay. Like where they talk about the envelope and then request it to be tested by the FBI. So I might pull some.
Yeah, you may have to post that. Yeah.
So I found that was super interesting. That was, at least that I could see, that was the only hard evidence development. Everything else was like, oh, she might have gone here, she might have gone there, someone saw her here, she went to the bus station, things like that. Okay. And then public reaction at the time, I mean, I've already talked about this. Like, this story there's still crazy. Accusations.
Well, you said that you said you got a newspaper clipping from Australia, which is not...
Which in 1940s is crazy.
The fact that you're on the other side of the world now. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just like still going on today. There's movies, there's books about this. There's been so many dramatic versions of this made to be, popularized that it's hard to figure out what the original facts of the case even are without going literally to the FBI vault. But anyway, so my theory, putting my fedora on, is that 3 men worked together to kill Short. And I think...
Can I guess who?
Yeah, you can guess who.
I'm guessing Hansen is one of them.
The nightclub. Mm-hmm.
The last doctor that you talked about.
Yeah.
And then the other guy that was Hansen's friend. I don't remember his name.
Not his friend.
Or the guy that
worked for him.
Yeah, that guy.
I think that the Leslie Dillon, the last guy, was the one who worked for him. So Mark Hansen, Patrick O'Reilly, the last doctor, and Leslie Dillon, which was the guy who worked for him. Okay. So Leslie Dillon was staying at the Astor Motel at the time. And later on down the road, the motel owners of the Astor Motel admitted to have found a room covered in blood and other matter around the time of this killing. And witnesses also say that they saw a dark-haired woman, which saying you see a dark-haired woman is nothing. I'm a dark-haired woman.
Yeah.
Like, but they said they saw this dark-haired woman with a man that looks like Mark Hansen. Who knows? Witnesses are so all over the place.
Yeah.
Super unreliable. But the fact that Dylan was staying there and he had worked for Mark Hansen, and then the doctor, O'Reilly, they were all involved in the same, not prostitution ring, but like call girl type of business.
Yeah.
It was just all very shady. There was an underground gambling ring, and a lot of people think a lot of it had to do with the nightclub scene, and obviously that all went together in this time.
Yeah.
So
the 40s, everybody.
Yeah. Welcome to the 40s.
Welcome to the 40s. The hat goes well with the 40s.
Yeah, it does. So Hansen later went on to do an interview in 1971. And when asked about this, he said, she just asked for trouble. She probably went too far this one time and just set some guy off into a blind berserk rage. So saying she just asked for trouble, not, well, maybe she was just asking for trouble or something like that.
Yeah.
The way he said it in this interview, and was so blasé about it.
Also, you don't... In a blind berserk rage, you don't meticulously dissect somebody and move
like
them to a different location.
Yeah.
You just you just strangle them and they're dead. That's it. Or you do something stupid. A blind berserk rage isn't a...
Yeah, it's like you stab someone once or something.
Yeah,
or shoot them.
It's not a meticulous killing, which is what this is.
And the body was posed, like a mannequin. And so there was just a lot that I think tied the three of them together.
Okay.
That made the most sense to me out of everything.
Okay, that makes sense.
And paired with, at the time, the confidence in the police was zero because there was mobsters, there was underground gambling, everything. And so there was probably also police corruption. The grand jury actually investigated the police. They didn't end up finding any evidence of corruption, but the fact that they also thought the same thing and that there was possibly corruption in the, whole case is... Like, why were so many suspects released when they didn't have good alibis? It's just wild. So I think that that's the most plausible theory is that those three men
work together.
Like, I think that Dylan and the Dr. O'Neill were kind of under the control of Mark Hansen, the nightclub owner, especially if Mark Hansen was like
a crime lord.
Yeah, not saying he was like a mobster or anything, but if you're caught up in that scene and you're the owner of the nightclub,
you're kind of the boss.
You have influence over your patrons. Mm-hmm. So that's what makes the most sense to me.
I don't understand, why did it take so long for the like bloody hotel room to become a thing?
Well, and that's what, there's so many things in this case that are so confusing, and you don't know. Did the motel owners say that later on just because they want people to now visit? And I don't even know if it's still open, but did they want people to come visit and see where the murder happened?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's weird.
So that's why.
I mean, it's Hollywood, so there's all sorts of craziness.
Yeah. And so that's why this case is so frustrating. And I personally don't think it'll ever be solved because there was too much misinformation.
Yeah.
All the people that came forward and confessed that made absolutely no sense. And
everybody's dead now too.
Exactly.
And I just don't think there's any
And if there was police corruption and they covered up who originally did it, we'll never know.
No.
So.
Yeah, everybody's dead, or most people are dead. The only thing we have now is relatives of those people, and I don't think that one's gonna get solved. I think the Springfield 3 could be solved one day because it's recent enough. I think with better
technology that can get a better image of under the parking garage, and if they know that for sure, that would be the lead that I think might have the most.
Yeah. Yeah, but
I don't know.
I kind of doubt that they'll ever be found or it will ever be solved.
Yeah.
Um,
It is crazy though that
but-
for both cases, I mean, tips are still coming, like things are still coming out.
It's even crazier for the one that you're talking about though, because that's
because it happened in 1947.
That's
Yeah.
I mean, that's almost 100 years ago.
I know.
It's not. It's like
it's-
80 years ago, but that's a long flipping time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just wild. So that's the Black Dahlia case. And a very short version of it. I know that took forever, but that is the short version. So, yeah.
Okay. Well. Yeah, that's crazy. Okay.
Thanks for playing detective with us.
Yeah.
If anyone has any theories of their own, I'd love to know because
leave
truly,
in the comments.
for both of these cases, I'm sure there's things that we missed and didn't read, and because we're not real detectives.
No.
As much as Kevin's hat says that he is a real detective, we're not real detectives. So if anyone else has a theory, I'd love to know because it really is fascinating.
We'll have to do another one of these. Also, that's another thing. Leave a comment on what other case you want us to look into because this was fun.
Yeah, if you have another true crime, let us know because, I mean, I know a ton of true crime cases, but
yeah.
But this is fun.
Anyway, we got real quick
fun
facts, and then we'll be done. So,
what's your fact about?
So my fact is it kind of follows along with this, and I didn't really mean it to, but I feel like I do that a lot. Anyway, the circulatory system in your body is 60,000 miles long, more than 60,000 miles long.
That's wild.
That's crazy.
60,000.
If it were laid out flat, it would stretch for more than 60,000 miles, according to the Franklin Institute.
Weird.
That's
it's also gross to think.
Long ways. Did you?
I like how that grosses me out, but not the murder.
If this grosses you out, then you probably never seen it. Did you ever see the bodies exhibit when it was traveling around?
I don't think so.
Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Okay, so it was an exhibit that traveled that was like half like dissected bodies for science.
Okay.
That they would, but it was like real humans that had been dissected and were on display that you could go see like different parts of like the muscular system, the skeletal system, and like different things. And one of them was a circulatory system that they had. I don't know how they did it, but they had like injected this person with like a plastic, like a red plastic. And then stripped away everything else. So just laying on this bed was just the circulatory system. And it's in 3D. Like you can see the shape of like a body. And you can see like where the clusters of the blood vessels and stuff are, which is the lungs, of course, says a lot.
I don't think I would like that.
I
can watch TV shows that are gory all day long, but if it's real life.
It was really cool. Like, I mean, it's weird.
I was never a science girl.
But it was really cool.
It sounds interesting.
But I
would look at pictures of it.
Okay.
I would not want to look at it in person. I don't know. I have to have that barrier.
Okay.
Like a TV show, like I watch Bones all the time, and Casey can't watch that show while eating. I'll sit there and eat all day as they're like.
Yeah, that kind of stuff doesn't bother me. I don't like gory movies and stuff, like overly gory things, but like a television show like that doesn't bother me. So.
But in person, I have to have a barrier. Either a picture
television
or
is the barrier.
a television. Yeah.
Okay. The screen is the barrier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll watch people getting murdered all day long, as long as it's on TV. Not in front of me.
Okay. Anyway,
so
what's your fact?
My quick fun fact. It's not got a long backstory like all my other facts that I choose.
That's good because we've already been going for an hour.
I know.
Over an hour.
But I chose this one because I feel like you like a lot of like Olympic type stuff.
Okay.
So from 1912 to and you probably already know this. From 1912 to 1948, the Olympic Games held competitions in fine arts. Medals were given for literature, architecture, sculpture, painting, and music. Oh. And my only thought when I read that was, I remember how nerve-wracking it was to go to state playing saxophone. Like
in the Olympics,
if I had to play in front of the whole world, I would simply cease to exist. Like my anxiety, I think I would disappear.
Well, you got one good thing is you wouldn't have been in front of the whole world because it's the Olympics. So you're not.
True, it's on
it wasn't televised back then.
True, yeah.
It wasn't a thing.
Yeah, but still, it's a lot more pressure than Missouri State.
Yeah, a gold medal for your country.
Yeah.
I don't remember what year it was, but it kind of goes along with this. There was a year that I want to say it was Russia, but I don't remember. Mm-hmm. They showed up to the Olympics like 12 days late because they were going off the wrong calendar. Like they were going off of one calendar, and then the other group was going off of like the Georgian calendar. Like they were going off of two different calendars. So they showed up like 12 days late and it was over. It's like that's just hilarious. Like how do you not get this right? It's once every 4 freaking years. Like how do you not get it right? Yeah. Anyway,
thanks for playing detective with us.
Had fun. Thanks for playing detective with us. Let us know what your theories were about our case. And we'll post some stuff in the link or something and let you guys look at some of this stuff. So yeah, thanks. Like, subscribe. If you want us to do another one, let us know what other cases you want us to look into, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.